it's very difficult to be released. And for those of you that have, we're very grateful, and it's great to see you. But the recording will be available in the team space I'll try and get that done tomorrow. So if any of your colleagues want to catch up, that will be there. As always, the aim of the network meeting is a chance for everybody to collaborate. So there will be time this afternoon to go into the breakout rooms, the next best thing to sitting with each other over a coffee and sharing what's going on in your schools at the moment, and reflecting on the practice that is going to be shared this afternoon. I'm very grateful to Paige from Risker Primary and to Rihanna from Clythe Primary, who as curriculum partner schools, their turn has come around to do some sharing this afternoon. And so again, really grateful for that. Our session this afternoon, I do want to just kick off with some basic information sharing for you. And I'm going to ask for you, those of you who have joined this afternoon, to do, as in the team, a short favour by way of completing a very brief 2 or 3 minute quick online audit for us to get a feel for the range of programmes and schemes that are being used in schools in the region, so that we can better tailor the professional learning that we are providing to the resources that are already being used in schools. I then want to give you a fairly brief overview of the professional learning offer for the coming year. That will be in a kind of draft form, which will be finalised in the next few days to be shared at briefing sessions for heads and senior leaders in the coming weeks, and then to be provided to schools in the new PL brochure. And then we'll get to the highlight of the session, which is the time is most dedicated to, and that's practice sharing. And with a focus on speaking and listening this afternoon, we have presentations, as I say, from 2 schools, and then the chance to reflect in breakout rooms on what you've seen and heard. So that's our plan. So the very first thing I'm going to ask is, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just about to place in the chat a link for a very brief form. Now, if you wouldn't mind either using the QR code or the link that I've just placed in the chat to complete probably 2, possibly 3 minutes worth of sharing about the programmes that you're using in school. We'd like to know what programmes are being used widely across our region, particularly in relation to sort of core headings. What are the phonics scheme or schemes that you use predominantly in your school? Any particular reading schools that you use, reading programmes, reading schemes that you use in your school? Same with guided reading. Are there any key resources that you use for that? And handwriting and spelling. And then writing in general, are there any programmes, key teaching resources that you draw on as a core in your school? And also, we'd like to ask about intervention. We know that running interventions in schools is very challenging currently in terms of staffing alone, if nothing else. But we're keen to know what programmes are being used so that we can provide support centrally to those that perhaps are going to be most useful to schools. So I'm going to just stop talking for a couple of minutes and ask if you wouldn't mind just filling that in for me. Thank you. And if you get to the end of that, if you wouldn't mind giving me perhaps a thumbs up in the chat so I can get a kind of feel for when people are ready to move on. Diolch. Okay, that's smashing. Thank you very much. If you're still finishing that, I'd be grateful if you could just complete that. But we'll carry on because I'm sure that you can listen as we go. Thank you for doing that. So just before I talk you through the professional learning offer for the coming year, I just want to alert you to a couple of activities that are going on for the remainder of this term, if that's something that you're interested in. So coming up next week, we have 2 online sharing sessions. One for the Reading Reconsidered programme that was offered earlier in the year, and we had a good number of primary schools and secondary schools engage with the Teach Like a Champion reading training back in the autumn term. And those schools have been trialling strategies in the spring, have written case studies, and there will be some of those case studies presented next week on the 27th of June in the morning in the online session with regards to Reading Reconsidered. So if you're interested in joining that online session to hear more about the programme and the impact that's had in classrooms, then the link is on the slides, which I will share with you at the end of this session. Similarly, if you're interested in hearing more about the Writing Revolution writing programme that has been going on in our region for the 2nd year this year, then that sharing session is in the afternoon of the 27th of June online. This writing programme is having considerable impact in primaries and in secondaries, mainly with pupils from year 3 upwards. And the programme is very much based on really excellent sentence construction. It's having a big impact, particularly on those older students who struggle with that construction for their non-fiction writing in particular. So if you're interested in hearing more about that and the impact it's had in primaries and secondaries, you might find that session interesting as well. And finally, the last offer from the team this term, and it's an offer from across the whole of the LLC team, across all languages, is the How Do Languages Connects Us Day, which is on Tuesday, the 2nd of July. We already have about 60 schools signed up for this event. It's going to be a fantastic day in Lancaster over in Caerphilly. And the focus of that day is a series of workshop sessions led by Dr. Ellie Bristow, looking at connections across languages, in particular in relation to spelling and oracy and reading comprehension, with an underlying theme around etymology and morphology, which we know Estin and our new curriculum are highlighting more and more with regards to development of skills for literacy. So that proves proving to be really popular, and that'll be a great day. If anybody still wants to book a ticket, those are available through the link on the screen again. So with regards to the coming year, all of the curriculum teams have been working to provide an offer this year, which is designed to be, I don't want to say back to basics because none of this is basic, but it is about good bread and butter teaching and learning of English and literacy. And just to explain that, our curriculum partner schools, of which we have currently 7 for English and literacy in the primary, and you can see them on screen there. All of our curriculum schools are going to be supporting I say the team, predominantly me, to create, to trial, to share, to exemplify approaches and materials which will then be shared through both the professional learning offer this year, but also through our supporting our schools website, which one of the jobs for all of the teams across the next few weeks and into the summer is to really strengthen and bolster that website so that there is a wider array of physical, practical resources for teachers and for pupils. So all of the materials that will be developed with the team will go into the professional learning for the coming year and onto the website. So our professional learning offer for English and literacy in the primary phase in the coming year. We're going to have a really strong focus on reading, and we will be offering a number of programmes next year. The first of which is going to be led by Maindy Primary, one of our curriculum partner schools, and that will be looking at developing early readers with a particular focus on nursery and reception. This will be an excellent session for newly qualified, younger, newer in the profession teachers, as well as teachers perhaps who are more experienced, but are looking to develop that expertise around that early years practice for developing reading. We'll also be offering improving reading comprehension with a focus on year 1, 2, 3, but also then on 4, 5, 6. All of these events are going to take place in the autumn term. And as with all of the professional learning in the coming year, there's a strong focus on what a teacher is going to be taking away from that session in terms of teaching materials, but also resources for pupils. And so all of these sessions will involve resources to take away. I'm sure lots of schools will be glad to hear that the top 10 reading response to materials, which I can't think of many schools that aren't using really well already. We are in the process this term of updating those materials. We know that in the past they were put together for moderation around levels and outcome characteristics, but we want to bring those into the 21st century and make sure that they are focused on comprehension skills, adaptability for a range of contexts, both fiction and non-fiction, and to exemplify with examples from school. So those resources will be coming through the reading comprehension training, as well as a focus on progression maps. We have a series of English and literacy progression maps that have been developed this year in collaboration with schools in our curriculum design programme. And these will be available on the website and through all of our training in the coming year, focusing on oracy reading and writing with narrative, grammar, figurative language, argument and rhetoric, and perspectives. And these 5 core concepts have progression maps created for them, looking in detail at what knowledge, skills, and vocabulary are relevant in each of the progression steps, with a view to that 3 to 16 continuum and supporting individual schools, but also clusters of schools, as we know that more and more conversations are taking place about what does that curriculum look like in primary and into secondary, and with a particular focus on progression step 3 from primary into secondary. So those resources will come through the training. We're also updating and providing new teacher materials and pupil materials to support guided reading and reciprocal reading. So we hope that reading comprehension offer you might find of use for colleagues in your schools. With regards to writing, our offer will mirror the reading in that one of our curriculum partner schools, Risca Primary, who are also a partner school for early years, will be offering a day looking at developing early writers for particularly focused on nursery and reception teachers, teaching assistants, HLTAs, all of our training offer is available to the range of staff in your school, whoever it is most useful for. And again, that will be focusing on that early relationship between oracy and writing, engaging context, and appropriate pedagogy for those early years. We will also be offering building skills for writing for teachers in 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. We know in schools that there is a renewed focus on how do we encourage that build of skills for writing for our pupils. And these two programs are going to look at what that build of skills looks like, age and stage appropriate, and the methodology that supports that. But these are meant to be practical sessions with resources for teachers to take away to use in classrooms, and there will be material shared by our curriculum partner schools to make them even more practical. And finally, we are offering, by popular demand, a session looking at spelling. This will be an online shorter session. And again, the focus here is on what does that continuum of spelling look like, practical approaches and resources, and we want to make sure that we provide a collection of spelling games and activities that can be used through the primary school to enhance the teaching of spelling. So resources that will come through all of these programs, again, that focus on the progression maps and how narrative looks with regards to writing, how figurative language would come through the writing, and so on. We have a new learning sequence model, which is adapted from the model that was used for our previous training a number of years ago, the Getting It Right training, which was also the central focus for the literacy learning pathways. And our new learning sequence model, tried and tested with schools, will be the focus for those writing trainings. Alongside some new materials to support the teaching of a variety of text types, again, with a view to that continuum from primary into secondary, and looking at a consistent selection of text types led by purpose and audience, and what that looks like through the primary and then on into secondary for our English departments and for literacy across the curriculum. So a range of new resources that will come through all of those training. We are also continuing to offer a morning session looking at speaking and listening, and with the session this afternoon, you will see a variety of fantastic ways of developing speaking and listening from Risca Primary and from Clytha Primary, and many of the resources that they will be referring to will be part of this half-day training, where we will look again, for those of you who wish to refresh or send new members of staff looking at Voice 21, that will be the session to engage with. We're also engaging with a number of schools across our region who use the range of phonics programs that we know are used widely in our region. And we will be offering a briefing session in December, which provides an overview of the schools reflecting on the strengths and challenges, the practicalities and costs, the resourcing issues associated with the key phonics programs that are used in our region, as a briefing to show what's on offer across our region. That session will take place online in December. And a similar session will be taking place in the new year, looking at literacy intervention use across our region, what's being used well, and the pros and cons of various approaches. And again, if you've kindly just taken part in that audit for me, that kind of information will feed into this session as well. And finally, two professional learning offers this year, which are predominantly aimed at groups of schools within a cluster, where it's looking at the development of the curriculum for English. At the bottom of the screen there, planning for long-term progression from year 1 to year 9, looking at what progression looks like across the primary and into the secondary phase. And this programme will be best suited to groups of schools within a cluster who want to spend that dedicated time developing practically a curriculum that suits the needs for English across a cluster. And the final session is Excellence in Writing. This session will take place in January, and it will focus on, in particular, that transition year 6 into year 7, and a focus on creative writing and narrative, with a particular emphasis on how do we build grammar and punctuation to develop that excellence in writers for our youngsters. So that's just a brief overview of the professional learning for the coming year. I should also say that, as always, if there are any of our professional learning offers that suit your needs in relation to your school development plan, and rather than send an individual to central training, you might like to engage with these programs for the whole staff or at a cluster level, then where we can, we will accommodate that. So please just feel free to drop me a line if that's something that you're interested in. And I'm already having a number of schools booking me in particular for Voice 21 training for whole staff in the coming year, but also reading comprehension seems to be something that a number of schools are coming forward with. So again, if it's something you think I can help with, please just drop me a line and I'll do my best to accommodate. Again, our network meetings, we're hoping to continue next year. They will continue online, undoubtedly, and our provisional dates for the coming year are the 22nd of October, so just before half term, and then the 18th of February, again, just before the spring half term. But our focus next year, in collaboration with the curriculum partner schools, is very much on that sharing of what our curriculum overviews looking like in schools. How are schools mapping oracy, reading, writing for English, for literacy? And as part of that, I know a number of schools and in some clusters as well, really starting to think about how to ensure that progression in terms of literature, which drives much of our English teaching. So our curriculum partner schools and others will be sharing what that looks like practically in the autumn term and the spring term. So if that's something that sounds interesting, or that you have something to share, again, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Please just drop me an email. So trying to keep that as brief as possible to get to the highlight, which is our schools sharing. And this afternoon we have Paige from Risca Primary and Rihanna from Clytha Primary who are going to share. So without further ado, Paige, are you there?
I am indeed. Hello. And my camera's finally working too.
Oh, Diane, congratulations. You have better tech skills than I have. Chryso, welcome, Paige. And I know Paige, a member of the literacy team at Risca Primary School, and lucky enough to be the only person available this afternoon from the team to present. So you lucky, lucky lady, that's all I can say.
Okay, so we're noticing an increased number of children entering the school with poor verbal communication skills, specifically since COVID. The little ones coming in, there's a huge disparity between those who can really communicate effectively and those who are struggling, and then those linked into them. But children who are struggling to communicate, we are finding that it's having a knock-on effect with the behaviour or communicate with other children, they're lashing out. So we are really trying to combat that really early on down the school, so that hopefully as they progress, it becomes easier. I'm a year 6 teacher. In Key Stage 2, we're really noticing the pupils mimicking language patterns they hear online. This is really evident, and they very often using slang words, and they're beginning to speak in American accents as well, which is different. It's obviously the choice of YouTubers they're watching and their programs they're watching on the television as well. So we are really trying to combat that and yeah, and just try to reverse those effects. So briefly, I'll go into these in further detail. So we are modelling and correcting sound communication skills all of the time throughout the school. We have focused Oracy week each term, beginning of year 1. And then we have specific Oracy skills embedded within the literacy input. So even though we have an Oracy week each term, where it's just predominantly Oracy skills, those skills are then embedded across the curriculum. They're not forgotten about. It's consistently on the boil. So they are really developing those there. And then we also use a lot of DCF as well throughout our literacy lessons and really in our topic now. We just find it that it really does boost engagement, and the children often when they are recording themselves, such as on Mofo, it takes away that embarrassment that we are finding when presenting. Go to the next slide, Kat. Thank you. So our early years lead, she's put some research on here. So they are following the curriculum for the funded non-maintained settings. I won't read that to you, but if you want to read it in your own time, feel free. So in our early years, we've really revised the role of the adult. Before COVID, walking through our nursing reception, you would see a LSA working with 3 or 4 children on a task. It's now more free, where the children are, they have the opportunities to go and explore the areas. There's not so much sitting down. And it just means that that LSA's job is to really observe, prompt, and step in when necessary to correct those verbal errors. So I have that the adults are available to model good communication skills, including engaging in sustained shared thinking and effective use of open questions to support thinking. So it's really beneficial. We don't always want to step in. It's lovely that the children are communicating with others, but sometimes it is needed to get the most out of that play. The children are engaged in rich text, stories, rhymes, and daily and revisit familiar stories to develop their Oracy skills. So as we know, those nursery rhymes and the stories that they are used to and familiar with, and now we're embedding the hand actions as well to really develop those Oracy skills and introduce the new vocabulary. And as we know, children learn best through play. However, the Phoebe, our early years lead, she's really done a lot of research in making sure that the play opportunities are planned for. So it's not a free for all. There are opportunities there where those crucial Oracy skills should be developing, such as in the role play area. If we go to the next slide, Kath. Thank you. So Oracy for writing. So the picture, the yellow picture there is one of our word webs. We rely heavily on the word webs from year 1 all the way to year 6. How they work is, in our literacy lesson, we would have our model. So that may be an extract from a novel we're focusing on, or just a model that we have written ourselves. We would read the model in depth, highlight our key words, and then discuss why the author has chosen to use those specific language choices and the effect they have. And then we really break down the key vocab that we want to focus on, and we place them on our word map. So it just allows the children to really broaden their knowledge. And then you'll find in the lessons, they'll go up to the word web, they'll take that off the word web and they'll include it in their work. And also when we're completing Oracy activities, you'll always see them looking at the words to try to include the new vocabulary that we've introduced. This just creates opportunities to imitate the language before they become innovative and start improving and using their own language choices. So I think I don't think I could teach an English lesson without using my word web now. I've just become so heavily reliant on that, and it really does work. So in with our little ones, our foundation phase, an oracy activity is always carried out before a written activity. This is across the year in year 1, 2, and 3. We have a build-up week, and we really put emphasis on the children need those opportunities to talk and discuss what they're doing before they're able to write it down effectively. So this just allows them to internalize the language structures needed to write through talking through the text. And then they can imitate the language, like I said before, before creating their own and really analysing it. So last week, for example, as I was walking through the school, I noticed that year 1 and 2 were creating mud cakes. And then they were recording the instructions for how they were going to create their cake before actually writing the instructions down. And it just made sure that when it came to writing, they knew the instructions inside out, they knew the type of vocabulary needed. So we just gave them that stepping stone beforehand. I do have a video here of the year 1 children. They were focusing on Jake the Snake. And there we have a mixture of just recording themselves and also using the practical activities as well, because we find anything practical, as we know, really doesn't boost that engagement there. So if you'd like to play that, Kat. So that was taken at the beginning of the year, was obviously very simple. They'd only just entered year 1, and they were focusing on the prepositions and learning that story. And it just meant that when they were writing the story, they really knew and had a good grasp of the language needed. If you can go on to the next slide, Kat. So as I mentioned previously, we ensure to have an oracy week every single term throughout the school. This ensures that we can really dig down, develop those skills, and have a good grasp on those before we progress. So some activities that we may include are the debates, hot seating, presentations, and performances. Like with our writing, we really put emphasis on children having time to plan what they're going to say, especially in year 6. I find sometimes the children lack confidence, they want to look cool, so they don't want to stand up in front of their friends. But if we give them the time to plan their speeches or plan their debates with the resources that we would if they were writing, it really does build their confidence. And then when carrying out the activity, we get in so much more out of them than just planning a one lesson. We need the sequence to really build up to them. So we'd also look in this week at good and bad examples and compare them, and they would evaluate other people's. So maybe the teachers would record a good and bad example. We find that really beneficial. And then at the end of the week, we always evaluate our performances, evaluate our language used. Sometimes it's a peer assessment, sometimes it's a self-assessment. It just depends. But we found at the start of the year, the children would just tick. They didn't want to really be critical of their friends. But now, as you can see on the example on the slide, they are becoming more critical and really thinking about how their friend did complete the task there. Kath, this video was quite long, so I don't know if you just want to play 30 seconds of it. these three boys, they really shocked us because this was taken just after Christmas. When they entered year 6 in September, they're completely different children now. We would never have thought that they would be in front of the class performing, but because we put those specific because we implemented those tasks beforehand and really prepared them, give them opportunities and resources to boost their confidence, it has really helped there. So we use a variety of resources throughout our literacy lessons, topic lessons, and those Odyssey weeks. Some we take off Voice 21, some we've just picked up along the way, and we've got a bank of them that we just embed depending on what we see best fit. What they really use and really embed in year 3 and 4 is talk to detectives and the talking notes. So this just allows each child to play a role when they are having the discussions or when they're completing an Odyssey task. Because each child has to take on a role, it just boosts engagement there. And if you can see on the talk detectives, they have to actually put the child's name in. So we'd always say at the end, we want to see your name pop up at least twice. So that really ensures then that they're not just sitting back, relaxing for the whole lesson, that they are engaging and they are challenging themselves to get involved. Do you want to go on to the next slide, Kath? Thank you. So here we have our Odyssey dartboard. It may have a fancy name, but we just call it the Odyssey dartboard. So when we are introducing a new topic, or maybe this could be a plenary, or at the end of a whole topic, we place the different types of vocabulary on the dartboard. The closer into the centre of the dartboard, the vocabulary gets more challenging. So as you can see, the yellow ring, the vocabulary there is a lot easier than those words highlighted within the centre point. Each ring corresponds with a number of points. So then we would challenge the child to speak about that topic for a minute, 2 minutes, and gain as many points as possible. So ultimately, they love that element of the challenge. So for example, if I was to say a sentence and I included 3 words from that red section, I would automatically get 15 points. But then if I were to say like, basically, or repeat a fact, I get a point taken off. So especially in year 6, they love that. It does go down a treat. So the next activity that we use quite a lot is just a minute. So this is really simple. You, on any topic, or it can be a brand new topic, or at the end, like with previously, the challenge is they have to speak about that topic for 1 minute without repeating a fact, without hesitating, or without deviating. It's just really good so that they are really pulling on that language. And we find that some children automatically give 1-word answers because they are trying to speak for 1 minute, or you could even prolong it. They are having to recall those facts, recall those sentence starters to get the most out of it. So with a hot air balloon activity, this is quite a new one that we've included within our lessons, and it encourages the children to really think as well and justify their thinking and address ulterior viewpoints. So how it works is, you may have a group of 3 or a group of 4. You may give each child a character or an animal, or they may choose their own. So for example, I could say one child was a historical figure, another child was a celebrity, and another child was someone you admire or look up to. And then you explain the scenario, which is there's a hot air balloon going up. The 5 of you are in the hot air balloon, but it's beginning to sink because it's too heavy. One person, harsh, one person has to get thrown out of the hot air balloon. And then each child has to speak for a minute or 2 to justify why they think they deserve to stay on the hot air balloon and how their skill or how their talent is really going to benefit the rest of the group. So, yeah, it's just another fun activity that we include, and especially for persuasive writing, you really do get those sentence starters into your speech. So Another one that we like to include, this can be, we use this a lot in our jigsaw wellbeing lessons, but it can be used across all areas. So it's our blob tree. So I don't know how many people have seen the blob tree before. However, each blob can represent a person or a character in a book. And it may even be a case of, oh, which blob are you today? Why are you feeling that way? So those children who can't quite communicate yet or finding that challenging, they can start off by choosing a blob, and then we find they open up more and they really are starting to think about the reasons to justify their opinions. We use this when we're focusing on Matilda. One of the questions were, where was Matilda? What blob was Matilda at the start? How did she change at the end? What blob was she then? And how did she get there? So it is really useful to, and I think it's to take away that there's no right or wrong. As long as they can justify their opinions, it is really useful. So the debate, self-explanatory. We have debates quite often. Year six love a debate about everything and anything, but we would just make sure they have the resources with them. We would not expect them to carry out a debate without the planning beforehand and making sure they've all had time to think about what they want to say to get the most of the activity, to really develop those critical thinking skills. So Conscience Alley, this is, we've included it a few times, but it's still quite new to us. So a pupil is given a problem to overcome. So as you can see, this child here who's facing away, maybe he's taken on the role of a character, or it may just be a problem that he's facing, or may be a problem that he may face as he approaches year 7. The rest of the class form 2 lines to create an alleyway. Each line forms the same viewpoint and opinion. The pupil with the problem walks through the alley, listening to both sides of the argument. So it's kind of like the angel and the devil analogy there. So once the pupil has listened to the persuasive arguments put forward by the peers, once he reaches the end of that alley, he would make his decision there, but he then would have to justify, and we'd expect him to be using the phrases, I understand that, however, I believe. So it's just extending those to the more formal language. We've used this a lot when focusing on novels and characters and stories, and then it just allows them to really internalize the problem and the characters facing, and then everyone else in the class has to really think and justify their opinion to win over that child. So we use DCF quite a lot, mainly in our topic lessons, I would say. These are the apps that we tend to use, our go-to apps, but there's obviously way more out there that you can use. Morpho is a good one for those children who are a little bit shy or don't want to perform in front of the class. As they have a picture, you can just find a picture of Google, or it can be a picture that you put on the board they take a photo of. Their face isn't actually there, so it takes that embarrassment away, or if they are feeling a little bit nervous. So it really does allow them to take part in the audience activities and overcome that challenge. Pobble 360, we've used this last week. It's really useful for, as the children have to explain, or they can either orally explain the description of a setting, or they can type it in. And then Pobble 360 create a picture of the setting they've described. So it's showing the children, you need to be really specific. You need to really think of your descriptions and how you can like create a picture for the reader. And then it's really good for them to reflect and think, oh, actually, I don't know why the floor is that colour, but I didn't mention it either. So yeah, Pobble 360 is a really useful one. On the next slide, I just have a video here of a stop motion animation that the children in year 3 did 2 weeks ago. And they just speaking over the story of the 3 little pigs there. But we use stop motions all the time, certainly for when learning about fair trade, and they show the journey of like a fair trade banana. And we find that to be really beneficial. So the follow-up activity then, they would actually write their own stories of the three little pigs. And then the next week or a few lessons later, they would create their own story with elements of the three little pigs, but they may change the character or they may change what the pigs are building. So it's really giving them the foundations needed to create their own stories with that, with the vocabulary, essential vocabulary needed there. I hope that's okay, Kath.
That's more than okay. Thank you so much, Paige. I'm just going to see if anybody wants to come forward with a question, either in the chat or to ask you on screen. You'll be crossing your fingers there's nothing, but well, we've got you. Hi, Jade, go ahead.
Hiya, I just wanted to say thank you for that as well. That was really lovely and some really useful ideas. When they had your oracy week and you had their peer and self-assessment, and there was that table, whether they made eye contact, things like that, is that differentiated per year group, or is that like progressive skills going across, or are year groups using the same kind of assessment tool?
We change our peer assessment and self-assessment depending on the activity, and we plan across year 5 and 6 across the phase. So you would expect to see the year 5 and 6 peer and self-assessment different to the year 3 and 4, certainly. But even within the year 6, my lower ability children, I would be given a different sheet to my higher ability. It may just be an extra challenge on there. The skills and the basis are the same, but we would differentiate those accordingly.
Amazing, thank you.
Does anybody else have anything they want to ask? Well, there's a lot of love for the work that you're doing in the chat there, Paige. So that's always good.
I can't access the chat. So,
oh, can't you? Oh, I'm sorry. You believe me, everyone's really appreciative, as you would expect. That was a fantastic overview, and I think what we'll do now is I'm going to put everybody into a breakout room and perhaps invite you to consider whether the kinds of things that are going on in your school perhaps are similar to some of the things that you saw from Paige with regard to RISCA. And is there anything that you want to share in addition that perhaps you're doing slightly differently with regards to speaking and listening? So I've put everybody into breakout rooms ready to go, I hope. There should be somebody from a partner school in each of the breakout rooms. And if you wouldn't mind being the person who perhaps just takes a few brief notes of highlights of the conversation, and then if we've got time, we can feed a little bit of that back. But it's more important, really, that you just get a chance to speak to each other. So I'm hoping we're all back. It appears that way. So can we just perhaps have a moment for a little bit of feedback? If we have, let me just see, room 1, if is there any headline, any key sharings that are worth bringing back to the whole group?
I don't know what room I was.
Oh, do you know what, Ree? You go.
Shall I go?
Yeah, you go.
Okay, so yes, some of the similarities with RISCA were some of the apps that we use, and also Voice 21 heavily focused with a lot of schools using the activities and the tasks from there, and one of the schools saying it's something that they're looking to introduce next academic year. Differences with no really focus oracy weeks as such, but oracy built in into RISCA would do as well. Oracy built into everything at the start of lesson, oracy drama, speaking, listening. Other schools have said they use the Helen Bowen progression change to support that as well, and some Pi Corbett things, but oracy being the initial part of every session, really. Yeah. And that was our group.
Smashing. Thanks, Ree. Can any of our other curriculum partners just unmute and give us a flavour?
I was with recaf. I don't know how it worked. Sorry.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Lucia. Joe, where are you? I noticed that you had to go off to speak to a child. Are you back in the room?
Yeah, I'm still here, Kath.
Oh no, sorry.
Oh.
Joe Biddiscombe, is she there?
Hello, yes, sorry, I am here. I was waiting for somebody to stop ringing a bell outside the room before I switched my microphone on.
Well, lovely to see you.
It's gone quiet, thank you, sorry.
Did you get a chance to listen in, Joe?
I did, yeah. The one thing that came across, which I'd not really thought about before, but actually it's really obvious when you think about it, is the similarity of some of the methodologies that we use with the games and things that we've been using for quite a long time for Welsh. Things like the numeracy dartboard, the point scoring. We've done that for a long time when we've been asking children to build up adventurous Welsh sentences, particularly further up the school when we were thinking about things like moderation and expanding their sentences. And a lot of the Welsh games are very easy to transfer into English. And maybe, I hold my hands up, I sat there thinking, yeah, I've missed a bit of a trick here. I'm trying to reinvent the wheel with the numeracy games, but actually, it's there.
Somebody trying. Okay, I tell you what, we'll move on. We're going to run out of time quite shortly, and we need to make sure that we've got enough time to focus on what's going on at Clyde Primary, which we saw in person. It was probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago when staff from the school opened their doors and showed us what speaking and listening looks like across the school. It was a fantastic morning. It was overwhelming, the range that we got to see. And I know that Rihanna is going to just give us a flavour of that session now for sort of 15-20 minutes. And Rhi, I'm going to pass over to you. How are you doing? Are you okay?
Yes, thank you. I'm okay. I got this. Thank you.
Listen, if your screen goes dark, we'll leave you be. But I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to give a shout out first to my partner in crime, Diane Wharton, who teaches in Year 2 part-time, because we work together, and I couldn't do what I do without her and the team that we have, because she focuses on what's going on in the lower end of the school, and I focus with the older ones. Diolch, Catherine. So planning for progression, we've started to develop progression step guides. Anyone in our cluster, you've seen these. Not sure whether you can. Are they clickable, Catherine? Are they click?
They are, but then they require your.
Okay, I'll just talk. So they just split into listening, speaking, reading, and writing. We've got descriptions of learning on these. On the left-hand side, and then we've got the threads, collaboration and discussion, which we focused on this year, and presentational talk as well, with the study of poetry and phonics. They're working documents, so it's the nitty gritty of what we're looking for in each thread, and it's kind of a one-stop shop for planning progress across the school. And within each document, we've got one for each progression step. There's a Google Docs link to a folder of evidence. So within every class, so say within my Year 6 class, there's a folder for speaking and listening, and it's got collaboration and discussion, presentational talk, and poetry, presenting poetry, things like that in there. Oh yes, keep that with it. That's a good one. So it's useful for any new members of staff. It's useful for all of us to go to, just to remind ourselves with a very, very busy curriculum. So we've decided to introduce an assessment cycle. So we are covering the variety of oracy opportunities that we give our children. You can have a little C on the screen. What we've decided to do is focus, I'll show you in a little bit, on certain activities in your group. So to be fair, it's only this academic year I've really played around with the fishbowl grouping, which is, you'll see a visual in a moment, a Voice 21 and oracy activity, where I had a debate going on And so they were kind of the fish in the centre of the classroom. I jiggled all the tables around. Outside there were children assessing the oracy skills. So you'll see maybe a photo of children outside, and they're looking into the fishbowl and analysing, the way the children are talking, using the grouping cards, who's introducing, who is summarising, and all those little cards on there. So this is someone in my group was asking, about assessing it. We spoke about evidencing oracy on Seesaw, putting videos onto Seesaw. We spoke about children completing a self-assessment straight after they've delivered some oracy, and then straight after that they hand their book to a friend, and there's peer assessment that goes on. And I'll show you in a moment. Basically, on the left-hand side, what we're looking for that, I've just pulled words and phrases from Voice 21. So whether they're looking for gestures, or whether they're looking for, linking, thinking, summarising, or whatever the focus is. So there's key vocab in there to support them. So each group focuses on that same thread to track focus, and we revisit. It doesn't mean that's the only thing you do, but that's a focus when we're looking for evidence. So I've got a little image next of what goes on in Maithrin. Very, very similar, no doubt, to what goes on in your nurseries, with the Small World play, developing talk, turn taking, story sacks, family links. We've got a lot of family engagement sessions across the curriculum. We've done a breathe and read recently. We've had family in for maths, for STEM, but here's family in, so family know. You mentioned in Risco, and it's the same for us, and it's probably the same across the board, that, the difference, with children coming in, and it's getting parents in to make sure parents know the importance of developing listening, understanding, and getting the attention of the children. So family engagement is crucial with that one. And I can't read what that one says down the bottom, so I'll move on. Let's go. So in Dosbarth Durban, so in our receptional class, there's opportunities for the presentational talk. Little one, like you said at Risco, we use Chatterpix as well, for them to talk and do little voiceovers. So you've got the DCF, there's digital opportunities, and then you can see that every class does from reception up, they do a class assembly. So throughout the year, that on the left hand side, that's reception class delivering their classes. There's actually a hall full of parents there, so obviously they go later in the year, and it's a time to develop the speaking and listening in front of a wider audience. But you can see up on the left, maybe some of those show and tells that go on Seesaw in some of your schools, and then collaboration and discussion where the teacher will write down what's been discussed in reception class, and then they put their own little bits together down there on the right hand side. I got some more notes here off Guy, celebrating their achievements, hot seating as characters, telling jokes for comic relief, and I've just mentioned about presenting to families during class assembly. I tell you what, the jokes for comic relief was a great way to do it. Haven't done that before, but the year 6 jokes were a bit near the mark. So blwyddyn un. So again, we've got presentational talk, whole class opportunities. I think in that one they did a bit of Welsh as well. They did a little bit of fashion show for their families. Drama strategies, well before my time in Clyther. I've been there 14 years. Drama's built in to English, to literacy. It just goes with absolutely everything. Drama through history, drama through anything at all. So freeze framing, using texts. We pick our texts very carefully. We don't keep to the same text year in, year out. We might see something on Twitter, we might be inspired to try, but the ones that work They are used very regularly. Obviously, we got the little role play up there, digital opportunities, presentational talk again, and examples of collaboration and discussion down there about that little text for Blwyddyn Un. So Blwyddyn Dau, I think that one on the left there is they have an art gallery in Blwyddyn Dau. So they go in dressed up as artists and they can talk about art in the classroom. So there's an example of opportunities to talk through other areas of learning. Stories from around the world, we can see they're retelling those, and they're filmed and they're popped onto Seesaw. So they're using their digital skills as well. Again, you can see the pattern, it's freeze framing using text as the stimulus here with Blwyddyn Dau. What did she call it, that one there? That's the one on the top left is a waxworks video. That's what that one is. She called it a waxworks. And the middle one there's a little group poetry recital where they've learned and they're presenting that one. And the anklet for a princess retell is the little link down the bottom there. So that is one of the pages for Blwyddyn Dau. And the next slide here shows us some collaboration and discussion opportunities. And there's assessment on there as well. You can see progression throughout the year from these documents here, and you've got the teacher assessment, you've got the self-assessment. So there was that advert, again linking to other areas of the curriculum for, eco, the pollution, that glitter, and this class, they send emails and all sorts to the head teacher. She's inundated with different things that go on. We've got Banksy art. He's been to our playground, would you believe it? But anything just for those experiences to grab their attention. Talk detectives, this is what it's called in Voice 21 for those who are unfamiliar, and it's the earlier part of looking at the features of oracy. You can see there loudly and clearly, which is key, and then persuasive, taking it up a little bit in Blwyddyn Dau. Are they using that language to persuade? And oh my, yes they do. So that's a little flavour of Blwyddyn Dau. And then we've got another one. These beautiful books are used across the progression step 2, the street can't speak today, the street beneath my feet. They've been used for a couple of years because they work. So different books are added. But these are the talking webs where you can see as a teacher, as support staff, will draw them down here in Blwyddyn Dau. As the children get older, the children can complete the talking webs, and you've got evidence there of progression with somebody who might possibly not have contributed much in the early part of the year, but as time goes on, you can see that it kind of possibly might level out a little bit with other children encouraging others to speak. So back-to-back drawing, and again, Catherine saw one when she came to us as well, didn't you, where they were describing some art, and they had to get the colours in the right place, and anyone who came to school had a little look at that. So that was one of their activities. So the back-to-back drawing there was musical instruments. That one was. Blwyddyn Tree, a variety of opportunities to develop collaboration and discussion and presentational talk across the curriculum. There's careful planning in small groups going on in here on the left using circle groupings we've got here. There's a performance, we can't see the curtain here, but Blwyddyn Tree and Blwyddyn Pedwar, they've both got like a red chiffon curtain, which they just pull down. They whip it up when they're not using it, and they pull it down. So they've got an instant stage for acting and DJing, whatever is going on. It's very quick, seconds, and you've got a stage, you've got a platform to perform on whatever area of learning you're using at that time. So we've got a little bit of medieval drama here. The DJ equipment there was an environmental wrap, and always different props. There's all sorts of different things coming out of these classes. And the little one in the middle, Flooded, that was somebody who stood up and spoke and summarised the main points of that text that they used there. But there's always a drama going on somewhere, so and that's lovely. So progression and experiences across progression step 1 and 2. You did just see some of those, but we just thought we'll put this little visual together. There's the role play and presentational talk with progression step 1, and then progression step 2. That's that curtain I was just talking about. Doesn't look the tidiest there, but it's well used. You see, it's well used, up and down, up and down. And that's the little Blwyddyn Tree Theatre that they perform in across all areas. So progression across progression step 1 and 2, collaboration and discussion with those talking webs used across the curriculum, and that's what it looks like. The Voice 21, the oracy skills, what they're focusing on. Dosbarth Durbin's way of doing the talking web is just to pass that thread, pass the wool around between each other. I think it was about a year ago, we introduced the importance of staying safe, staying away from drugs down there in Blwyddyn Tree, as a little introduction to staying safe there. And also lots of self and peer assessment, as I've said, does happen as well. And that's the children completing those talking webs down there. So across progression step 2, for the last couple of years, we've chosen a story as a whole school Eisteddfod focus. So we did Tales from the Deep Lady in the Lake this year, we did Cantref Gwaelod last year, and we find different versions of that story, of the book, to share with the 3 different progression steps. So we share that story, and at the Eisteddfod, each class did their little bit in their own way, whether it was whole class or different children speaking different lines or different groups speaking at different times. And you can see we've got Blwyddyn 1 Daitri at the bottom, and you can see the progression. They're all asked to speak clearly. No, oh, lost me. Think I'm back. Of a self and a peer assessment, and there's the QR code evidence as well for the children doing that one. So across progression step 3, so you can see at the bottom how we're looking at progression, right from keeping listeners interested to use appropriate facial expression and eye contact, its meaning, and then the 3rd one along, allowing listeners time to process what's said. So we're building on what's expected of their oracy skills. So that was Blwyddyn Pedwar there, where they were put into groups. Blwyddyn Pimp, they were in groups and they chose their own parts to do. Mine, I just said, off you go. Off you go, pick who do you want to be, what do you want to do. And so they performed the story. And mine actually said, can we make it humorous? And year 6, and I said, well, yeah, why not? That's that next level up. So they brought a bit of humor, even though there wasn't really humor in the original one. I thought, well, if they've thought of that, why not? So we've got little video. All this is video evidence on our Google Drive, and again, it's all self-assessment and peer assess. as well. So the next page, so this is what we've used for many years. I've used the discussion roles on the left for many years. I've played around more with some of the higher level, what I might call the fishbowl activities this year to really focus on that. But on the left-hand side at the bottom, you can see a circle grouping, and they're having a discussion, and they've got those roles. So there'll be several times throughout the year where they will, to be fair, every year when I start this, I say, start with a focus area where you think you would be strong at. So, you know, if somebody really confident might be the instigator, they might be the one that starts the process off. Somebody super confident might be the challenger. And I've always got the same children, you know. But when we do the activity next with the groupings cards, I do say try and use a different role to what you had last time. So they're not using the same role throughout the year they're with you. So they've got, and that works. That works. By the time they listen and they hear the key sentence stems and that others are using, they have that confidence to try another role. So the middle pictures, Blythe and Pimp, Traverse, Onion groupings using those codes that one was talking about is, would you consider football to be a religion? Interesting one, that one in year 5, and mine on the right hand side with year 6. This was fishbowl grouping before we had a debate about vapes being banned, and again that was from First News. It was a Key Stage 3 article from First News, a debate article. This was the initial group, the oracy assessment, where they had those different roles, and the people on the side could, I said, you should be able to tell who's the instigator, who's the challenger, and they were able to do that because they were focusing on the style of oracy and what came next. So Blythe and Pedro, look, that's their curtain. It's real and it's used. So again, opportunities for regular performance, and again, drama strategies throughout. I think they're going around like zombies at that point, which I think they do quite a lot in there, and obviously text to inspire. And we never say to teachers, you have to use this text, which is probably easier in a smaller school. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we say you need to pick texts that you get excited about, so you can deliver them in that way that will inspire the oracy. I do. As a lead for all of LLC, I do say, you know, throughout the year, I would like you to have a text by a Welsh author at some point, and then we need a diversity text at some point, or a world text at some point. But it's, you know, it's up to teachers what they do. Every class as well. I did ask the year 4 teacher for a clip of his class assembly, but he said he didn't do it because he was so busy doing the assembly. There's no photos and there's no videos, and we all understand that, don't we? You're so busy doing, it's really hard sometimes to have an iPad out all the time. So a few years ago in my class, you'll see in a moment, I introduced Step Up and Speak boxes, and year 5 then introduced, they've got a platform from the stage that comes out for concerts and that. They've got a Step Up and Speak, Sefachas Sharad, and they have different topics up there, so they can just get up and have a little chat and talk about those things whenever they want to, whenever that changes. So again, you saw photos of these things then, photos of the groupings of the children there, and they also, the presentational talk I also referred to about the girls from Llynyvanfach when they did their little bit in groups and put the whole story together. So we could probably move on from that. So a new text that we did in Blwyddyn Chwech in the autumn term, couldn't not do this because it's, if you haven't read it, it's beautiful. I saw it all over Twitter and I thought, right, I need to find out what's going on here. So this led us on to, there were quotes in here as "you don't belong here," and you can see that little quote up here as well. So it wasn't long after they pulled the statue down over in Bristol, and again a level 3 debate activity in First News was, should every statue and memorial to those involved in the slave trade be removed from our towns and cities? So we had, all of the balanced argument language, where we do use Alan Peat sentences as well. I've got every teacher has his writing book, so you can model the sentence stems as you're doing this. I set up a Jamboard then for a discussion as to should they be removed or not, and giving the reasons. And then I split the class. In fact, I might, if I got a picture in a minute. I said, write your names on the whiteboard. Do you want to be for the removal or against the whatever you think? You need to give your argument for one side, and I need to balance out. So I had 2 lists, for and against, and I chopped those in half. I did pick my groups quite carefully. So I had a for and against debating, while the other half of the class watched. And then we had a little swap around. So we had 2 debates in class. And again, we used the whole language, motion, proposition, opposition, moved all the desks around, set it out like you would have a debate. What does help with this is our year 5 go to the Earth and they go to the Senedd and they see a real debating chamber, so we can relate back to their experiences of real debates and what really happens in our country, in the city. So that was that one. Now I had to put this one in because we've done this twice during the last 4 years, I think. And if you come across Theatre YOLO, the Playhouse experience to develop confidence with the RSC through expressive arts, there's a little, I think if you Google it, you can see the video. This was a year 6 class. That group of boys there on the right, they just love sport, football, sport, football. Their life is football and rugby. So to see them up on the stage doing something different, it was the most beautiful experience. It does cost quite a bit of money. I do believe it's about £350, which is why we're not doing it we haven't done it this year, because people don't have money. But if you ever find a little pot of money at the end of the rainbow, look out for that, because it's the most wonderful experience to develop their oracy skills and perform at our local theatre, at the Riverfront Theatre. We performed. But I'll move on because I don't have any money for that one. So we work closely with our cluster school, John Frost High School. So this is their resource. So we've got that as well. We got those in class to focus on. There's the tatty old step up and speak boxes. They're only 2 little blocks that I borrowed many years ago from nursery, but it does the job because they're transportable. They can take them out in the corridor. They can take them into the library. They can take them out on the ramp outside, and they have a little platform to speak on. Gives them so much. It gives them that they can have that presence that they might not have with their 2 feet on the ground. So 4 years ago, just before we went into lockdown, we held our very first Clytha Speaks event, and it was an oracy event where children chose a topic they wanted to speak about. We've done our second one this year. It was about months ago, I think. So for that, if we have a little look at the next slide, it literally started with that little Clytha Speaks sugar paper display. Clytha Speaks. I think it was something like the 22nd of May is on there. What was local, national, worldwide? What issues grab your attention? We had things like racism, environmental, things like that. And then me being me, I color coded the bits on Jamboard. What makes a good speech? So we've got the green is the social and the emotional. But by this time, because they've had so much in terms of oracy opportunities right from nursery upwards, they're good. So they can spot social emotional, the physical side of good good speech, the cognitive side, and then the linguistic side. So we did all of that beforehand. And then I do believe on the next slide, Oh yeah, we'll go to the next slide. We created mood boards then. And I had a mum say to me, my daughter's never going to stand up there and speak in front of an audience. And I said, trust the process. If they can pick something they really want to talk about, I can help them do this. So this girl said that her brother was in a rugby team, and when there was a girl in the team, and when she got to a certain age, she wasn't allowed to play with the boys anymore, and she was quite cross about that. So that got her. I said, pick an opportunity. So her speech was about gender inequality in sport, and she was nervous right up, but they support each other. They took those steps out. They practiced. They went out into the forest school. They practiced. We practiced a lot. Every time we practice, I give a child individual feedback. That's good. You need to work on that. And I just kept doing that. So on the actual night, and I did say, if you need somebody to stand next to you on the night, grab a friend and do it, or you can grab me. At one point, which boy said that would be worse than having a friend. I can take it, it's fine. He was joking. But this girl, she stood up on her own, she did it, and her mum had tears in her eyes, I had tears in my eyes, because it's not her thing. It was not her thing, and that hall had 100 people in it. But she stood up, and I think it was a really beautiful way to finish off in year 6. We had the head of John Frost came along as well, and the chair of governors came along, and that they all spoke about. We had compares. Little boy there starts with, hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I said, you're not scripted. They're off. I did have to hold my breath. I said, you just go for it and say what you want within reason. So that was a really lovely opportunity to finish in year 6. And I said, thanks on the back, and highlighted the 4 purposes on the back, because so many of those were ethical. The confidence that parents notice with their children after thinking they're never going to do that. And that's a massive thing, to speak in a hall in front of 100 people. We set it up a little bit differently, as you can see. There weren't rows there. We had little groups of 6 or 8 chairs around a little table with some flowers and a couple of different programs. But it was a joy. And what was beautiful, the nursery and reception teachers came to, the younger teachers watched, and for them to see the final primary, results of the input from when they started to when they're ready for high school was beautiful for them to see as well. And I think there's one more slide, and this is just, I think it just repeats. I think I've mentioned all of that actually. The only thing I didn't mention is every autumn we have a Cynefin topic, which is why I picked the Tiger book about belonging, because they felt they didn't belong. Spring, We the Curious. I think I did a little bit of Maisie Day, that's scientific. And then we've got Ein Byd Gwych, Our Wonderful World. And we've had Peace Projects, Project Person, and Dewch i Cymru, all of the home learning, which it's a different style of home learning after COVID, where traditional home learning doesn't seem to work at the moment. So it's talk about this, and I'm done, and diolch yn fawr iawn, and hopefully that's okay.
Hopefully that's okay, honestly. Thank you so much, Rhianna, especially when you're not on tip-top form, being not 100%, but we really appreciate that. And I think ideally we need 20 minutes in a breakout room now to discuss all that we've heard. But in the absence of that, does anybody have any questions or comments that they want to unmute and come back to Rhianna? Some lovely things going in the chat there, Rhi.
Lovely, diolch. Oh, diolch.
So again, running out of time, I won't speak to the remaining slides, but these will be in the file section in the next 24 hours, so that you can come back and access all of the links. I do particularly want to thank Paige from Risker Primary early on for sharing the work that they're doing, and again to thank Rihanna. It's a huge amount of work to put this together, and we really appreciate the time and energy that you give to that and the enthusiasm. In return, if I could ask for those of you who are still on the call, in the chat, if you scroll up, I have placed a link